Okay, welcome to Old College Try, the podcast, all things college, higher education here. Today, my co-host and I, Peggy Keough, talk about the College Transparency Act. What does it mean? Why do we care about it? Why are we huge fans? And how about these colleges that are talking about, hey, if you make less than $200,000, you come here tuition free, or if you make less than $85,000, you come here cost of attendance free. Is this a marketing gimmick? Is this real? Should we pay attention? How should this inform our decisions? We unpack the good, the bad, and the ugly with these types of programs. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, we're back. Bonnie and Clyde back in the big boy seats here. I think this is the first time, Peggy, we've been on here since you've been mother of the bride.
Yes. Both of my kids are married. Woohoo!
2 for 2. We're as my brother always likes to say, Peggy, you only get married twice. So may that not be the case. May you only married.
Part of my toast was my grandfather told my dad, there's 3 major things in your life: birth, death, and marriage, and you only have control of one. So choose wisely. And that was part of my toast. I said, job well done, you guys.
I like that one. All right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, couple things to talk about here. I mean, that I think are just good things to drill down on. One of them, I think, is less gets less, I guess, mainstream media coverage, right? But in our little world of higher education, we certainly pay attention to it. I wish, and I know you wish, and we wished at College Ed Pro that this stuff got more mainstream publicity. But the first place we're going to start is this Senator Cassidy down in Louisiana, who's been a huge proponent of something called the College Transparency Act. And he's not going to be returning to his seat, but as a kind of a last-ditch effort, he's trying to get this thing across the finish line. We're big fans of it. Whether or not it's successful, it's not going to change our philosophy in trying to have, families that pay attention to us, I guess, embody the spirit of this thing. But I guess, Peggy, before we drill down, just tell us, what is this College Transparency Act? Why should we care? Talk about it a little bit in your words.
Okay, so before we do that, I'm going to do my song because you forgot.
Here I go again. I forgot the song again. Oh, my God.
Yeah, so for our newbies, which I think I say this every time because Kathy, our social media guru, said, Peg, you need to explain what this is. So basically, Matt and I are super into music, so we're building this playlist for all of you that's not related to college. It's just a super fun playlist. So every time, and most of our guests, Matt, have been pretty cool. They're game to play. So we even have favorites or special songs from a lot of our guests. So it's developing into a really fun list. So before I kick into the College Transparency Act on a more fun note, probably. So my song, so there's a band, the Counting Crows. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Counting Crows. Love them, seen them 3 times. I will give you an insider tip if you haven't seen them. I love their music, but they're terrible in concert. Have you ever seen them, Matt?
No, interesting.
The lead singer, he doesn't sing. He talks through his songs. And, I saw him once. I saw him again. And the third time, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Because I love their stuff. I want to get on stage and actually sing it instead of, but that being said, I love their music. So one of the songs that I love is called Mrs. Potter's Lullaby. I'm sure you know that song, Matt. So if you don't know the Counting Crows, tune in. They're a great band and check out that song.
But apparently, go see them live. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Don't go see them.
Message received.
Well, if you want to, go see them live. But, if I'm right, I'm right. So, okay. So this College Transparency Act. Well, I love the name because as you're talking about, Matt, this is what gets us out of bed, right? So, this is not even close to being in fruition. And as we all know, it's difficult to get things through Congress and signed. But he's doing, he's given it the old college try before he's out the door. So basically, there's a couple different pieces to it, and there is some pushback because student data and having that available is part of the transparency piece, which certain people from privacy standpoint are pushing back on it. But he started this, which I love this phrase too, know before you go, is the whole intent of this, so that families, students, they just have a better idea about college costs, number one, and then outcomes, number two, which again, totally resonates with Matt and I because we have our tool, we have our experts. This is what we're about, like college costs, even at a way deeper level than Congress could ever go in passing an act. In all due respect to them, they don't have the knowledge we have. They're just talking about more at a meta level, the college costs, because it's not even transparent at a high level, let alone what the Keough family is going to pay versus the Carpenter family with a similar child, but maybe different financial backgrounds, kind of thing. So that's what he's trying to push through. And, we would be remiss if we didn't at least bring it up. So if you still read newspapers and hold them in your hand like I do, you will see some stuff about this potentially, but that's what's going on. But I will use this as an opportunity to say, if that's something that's landing for you and you're overwhelmed and confused, welcome to the club of almost every family in this arena. Set up your account with us. Go to mycap.collegeapro.com. And that's our whole thing, to make college more transparent. So even if this goes nowhere in Congress and doesn't get signed into a bill, you're all good because we're doing this.
Yep, 100%. So a couple comments here. Number one, Senator Cassidy, if you're listening, please answer my phone calls and emails. And Senator Cassidy and team, it's me, Matt Carpenter, that's been banging on your door for a while now. So because in all seriousness, we want to help here because we are huge proponents and we're looking at this thing going, here's somebody that gets it, right? Here's somebody in our institutions that's, I think, really trying to help families with this initiative and honestly help college as well, right? It's not a good thing for colleges when students and families don't have good outcomes. And of course, that's not their intent. So if they can help families be a part of another institution that can help families get ahead of this and make good decisions, everybody is a winner here. So, and there's no before you go. It's funny because that's something that we do. We have this meeting internally when we work with families one-on-one. That's one of the meetings that we will have when our experts sit with families is a no before you go. So we're just kind of, that's serendipitous there in terms of having the same, language, right? Again, I think kind of shows our alignment. Another thing that I really like and just quite frankly, just like does not get talked about enough when it comes to college costs is that this initiative is also looking at all 4 years of college, right? And nobody really talks about that when we talk about how expensive college is, right? We just say, oh my God, $100,000, that's crazy. Guys, it's $400,000, right? And I think even framing it that way at the beginning for most families would just help them understand the magnitude of this thing more, right? I mean, it's because, again, when we cut it in a quarter of what the cost is actually going to be, it's not as powerful. It's not as scary. And I say scary is like kind of a good thing when we talk about this massive investment, right? Even if we're looking at the in-state state school, that's not $40,000 a year. It's $160,000. It's $160,000 investment, as we know, and as the data shows us, oftentimes more, right? A fifth year of school or whatever. And so that's just something else that I really like to help, just set the calibrate expectations that this is just a 4-year deal and we shouldn't just be thinking about the cost. We should be thinking about what is likely to happen after I graduate based on the school, based on the major. And let's use all that data to help us make a great decision that's again more data informed in addition to the emotion that we know is usually the main driver here, probably to a fault. So anyways.
Yeah, that's funny you say that because I was just going to say, we're talking about all this data and it is an emotional thing, but you just got to really try to not let that be the driver. And as Matt said, this know before you go, we have that meeting so early when we meet with families. because that's the first thing. Like, and the 4-year view in my ideal world, parents are looking at a 4-year, what's my deficit each year, if there is one, and what's the total deficit, and how am I going to deal with that? Or can I deal with that? Does this school need to be off the list before we even do a serious tour? Like, tours are fine if you're on vacation and checking out places, but you really shouldn't tour until you know that stuff, because then you're going down a black hole. You're going down a hole that you get excited, your kids get excited, and then it can have some pretty rough conversations down the road if decisions are made and you either ignore the data or you just don't know it. So it sounds funny, but it's just, buying a car, buying a house. I know these are also emotional for people. I'm such a planner in my heart that I always go to be objective and don't have emotion in this stuff. And I know that's hard, but if you're way on the emotion side, you gotta go into the middle, especially if your kids
Exactly.
are off the edge, because you gotta bring them back and set some expectations, because the colleges are really great at presenting this 1-year picture. And if you're doing debt, just what Matt said, 400,000 full price, you're probably not paying that, hopefully. But if there is debt, you as a parent got to think, this isn't just this year's debt. That sounds manageable, but what is that over 4 years? So all those things are super important.
And compounding interest, right? I mean, especially if we're borrowing here, we got to look at the points that are stacking up on top of that and the whole deal, right? Versus the expected return. So to me, the takeaway is, whether or not this actually goes through, and we know the writing's on the wall that it's probably not, unfortunately, we should still be doing this as individual families. And again, we want to help you with that. And again, even if it does go through, I was thinking to myself, how are they going to actually execute on this? They better be giving us a call, because we got that plumbing right in place. So anyways, again, at least capture follow this strategy, whether or not it goes through or not. It's still a positive that's kind of out there in the ether, being talked about by, again, these massive entities. So, okay, next thing, that these types of things tend to get more, again, mainstream press, some kind of splash announcements that just kind of catch your eye. And these are different initiatives that different colleges do over different years, which is like, hey, if you make below X, you're not going to pay more than X at our college, or we're going to waive tuition, or whatever it happens to be. And a couple of the institutions that just recently have grabbed some headlines here is Davidson down in North Carolina, and Boston University in my backyard here in Mass. But why don't you talk a little bit about these two programs in particular, Peg, and then we can kind of just talk some high-level thoughts and comments around these initiatives.
Yeah. So Davidson came out in the last week or so. And when you see these headlines, you have, the devil's in the details, as they say, right? So if we look at Davidson specifically, they always talk about income, and your income is going to be the driver. Usually it's adjusted gross income, but again, you got to look and see. So, and it's going to be based on that prior year, your 2-year back look. So the specifics of Davidson, if you make 85,000 or less, you will get your child will get a full scholarship for tuition, fees, housing, and meals. So huge, right? Those are the two biggest pieces of the cost of attendance: room and board and tuition. Tuition's the biggest at private schools. Room and board is commonly more, like at University of Washington. It's much more than the in-state tuition. So, but both of those will be covered. And this is starting in fall 2027. New students that have an income between 85 and 175 will be tuition free. So they are going to have to pay room and board. But again, tuition is the lion's share of that cost at Davidson. And then new students with incomes over 175, they're just saying they're going to receive their aid package. and Davidson meets 100% of need. However, they calculate that need is the big question, and they don't include loans. And we're going to talk about that before we get off today. Like, what does that mean? It's a good thing, but it's a bit of a marketing tactic. So that's Davidson's deal. Pretty common. That's very detailed. It's pretty common that, Harvard has this and other schools where they'll give that adjusted gross income and they'll usually say, free tuition. Not as common to throw in room and board. So now let's look at BU, because this one just came out too, Boston University. This is an interesting one because I have not seen one like this. I don't know if you have, Matt, or if one comes to mind, but what they're saying is you will have a cap on your costs. It will be $20,000 for students that earn, or families that earn less than $200,000. Meaning, if you make $175,000, you will pay $20,000 to go to BU, all in. Like they're saying from the cost of attendance. So I threw this out a minute ago. That's tuition and fees, room and board, books, travel, personal expenses. And this has been going up for years, as we all know. We have no control, and they will say the official cost of attendance for the fall sometime in the summer. So they're doing it off the cost of attendance, which is not the norm. It's usually tuition, or even Davidson is saying tuition and room and board, and there's still some other costs there. So that's an interesting one. And then I'm going to say this and then shut up so you can chime in, Matt. But the other thing that these schools almost always say, and this is the tricky part, is in the language, it'll say with typical assets or, quote, reasonable assets. And usually they mean non-retirement money that you have. But some of these colleges, who knows what they're referencing, because they will know your retirement balances too. That is a key thing to understand, because if you have low income, because say you're retired, but you were a good saver and you're living off of a nice chunk of investments, well, good for you. But you're going to disclose that to the college and they might say, well, yeah, your income's below our limit, but you don't have typical or reasonable assets, so you're not eligible. And so that's where the devil's in the details big time, and you really have to read the small print and maybe even reach out to the colleges, and they might not be super forthcoming with a standard definition for that. That's what we found, our data team, when they've done research.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think in general, it's a positive, right? Anytime colleges are coming up with a new initiative that is especially, the intent is to help families that don't have a ton of resources, don't have a high income, make it college more affordable. Amazing, right? We're all on board. Now, having been in this business for 20 years, I'm always a little bit jaded, a little bit cynical, right? Because I do just know how creative and how effective these colleges can be from a marketing standpoint, right? And so, and their job, and they're not wrong for it, is to drive applicants and get as many applicants as possible, and just give them an opportunity to get the best possible students in their school, and everything that comes with that. And again, that's not a bad thing. That's what they're supposed to be doing, right? That's what I would be doing if I was on that side of the desk. But you said it, Peggy, the devil's in the details. There's nothing wrong with taking a closer look at some of these colleges, especially if your family's like, oh, I make less than $85,000. Oh, I make less than $175,000. You should pay attention, right? Because that could be a great opportunity for you. But you got, again, I don't know of a better resource than our software, right? So maybe I'm emotionally biased, but I also, I think I would be honest if there was another resource. Go to mycap.collegeaidpro.com, see what Davidson's actually going to cost you, see what Boston University is actually going to cost you, and whether or not you've heard of I don't know, promotion's the right way, but a deal like this attached to a college or not. That's where you're going to find your source of truth from an affordability standpoint. So you just got to verify. And you got to verify, again, trust but verify. I like that. I like that talk track there, because it's like, okay, you're not being cynical, but I got to go look for myself. Is this actually going to apply for my family? What is this reasonable assets mean? What does that actually mean for my
especially
family?
if you have saved meaningful money, which I would define, and don't quote me that the colleges are aligned with me, but if you're getting into six figures that you've saved, I would be reaching out to them, because they, the Davidsons and the Boston Universities of the world, they require a second financial aid form that goes really deep and asks for a lot of information. So they know a lot about you. So
Yeah.
they, they'll see what your assets are.
And
So
again, just to double down on this, a lot of these, a decent percentage of programs like this, and it's not just the colleges, states have these as well. I think a lot of people hear tuition free and they hear I'm going there for $0, right?
yeah,
They equate that to full boat, when that's not the case, right? A lot of these more expensive private colleges, room and board could be $30,000. Right. It could be, 30, it could be more if you're living in New York City or some of these more expensive parts of the country. Just to pick on my home state a little bit here. And again, this is not a bad program, but we have something called the Abigail Adams Award, where if you get certain credentials when you're younger in terms of test scores and GPA, you get, no tuition or free tuition at any of our state schools. And a lot of families think that's a life-changing amount of money. But UMass Amherst, for example, which is about $40,000 all in for state residents, right? Our flagship, even if you're eligible for the Abigail Adams, we're saving a couple $1,000 here. That's awesome, but we just got to know that's not necessarily this life-changing amount of money that's going to make this college completely affordable or free for my family. So again, just get yourself educated and understand these programs are absolutely, I think, a net positive. But before we, celebrate too much just yet, let's get clear on what this actually means specifically for my family. And then, by the way, we got to go get accepted to these, pretty tough colleges.
Yeah. Well, and I would say too, when they say tuition and fees is one thing and tuition's another thing. There was an article in the last month where actually my daughter's alma mater, JMU, go Dukes, they were kind of beating them up, and they were talking about the amount of fees they have. My son was at Indiana, go Hoosiers, and it was 800 or 900. JMU in this article was way more. But again, like, if you're not a detail person, I get it. My husband makes fun of me because I ask too many questions, but I'm like, dude, we don't have any surprises, right? So that's another thing, just planting that seed that tuition and fees is different than just tuition, because they're, not to be jaded, like Matt said, but they could put a bunch in the fee bucket, and that's not part of the free tuition. You still have to pay the fees, and if it's $1,500, that's a meaningful amount of money. So all these things you want to keep in mind when you see these, deals or financial aid scenarios that these schools are putting out. And there's quite a few of them. We're just highlighting the two that just came out recently. And it is great that they're doing this. And I think they realize at some moments that the price they're charging is insane. Their sticker price, if you will, or retail price, it's just crazy. So they realize, we have to deal with this because people might stop actually wanting to pay that. I hope that happens sometime soon. But we'll see.
Yeah, and again, I probably one of the reasons why maybe the biggest positive for me in these types of initiatives is it does encourage families that might have otherwise said, like, Boston University, $100,000, I would never let my kid apply there because we don't have any savings for college. Well, guess what? That doesn't mean that's what you're going to pay. So it helps coach and get ahead of that. Something that we have to consistently fight, which is, again, that in most cases, the sticker price, the cost of attendance of the college is usually misleading and has very little to do with how much our family is actually going to pay. So that's another positive here, where it can help just drive awareness that maybe these schools might actually be affordable. So this is within the same general concept, I guess, Peggy's. And again, this one to me is a little bit more on the marketing side than a real tangible benefit, or I don't know. It's one and the same. But these no loan schools, and now which tend to be these really expensive private schools that are tough to get into. But just talk a little bit about these schools that kind of make a name for themselves, and I think are really intriguing for families to be like, wow. I think what they hear, right, is if my kid gets in there, nobody takes a loan. But just talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, and that's what Davidson for the last bucket I talked about, where they're not going to give you a break because you make over 175,000. They're just going to figure it doesn't mean you're going to pay full price. Most families with that won't pay anywhere near full price at Davidson, but they like to say we're a no loan school, which basically means because colleges package, they put together a financial aid package for each student that they admit. The financial aid office does that. So they can what they call package loans in there. And most schools like to do that. They can take that federal direct student loan, which every student, if you're a citizen, you have a social, most kids are eligible for it. All they have to do, all your child has to do is submit that FAFSA and do a one-time loan counseling module online before freshman year. The government is encouraging further education. So it's a total of 27,000 over 4 years. What Davidson is saying is, hey, we're not going to put that in our package. So if you are eligible for need-based aid, they could put in 3,500 of what's called a subsidized loan, which means you don't have any interest until 6 months after graduation. So it's a no-brainer. It's a great loan to take. You just have to remember you got to repay it down the road, but no interest. So it's great. What Davidson is saying is, we don't do that. So they're not going to give you that 3,500. They're going to give you their money in lieu of it. Is that good? Absolutely, because it's a subsidized loan, but 6 months after graduation, interest starts accruing and you got to pay it off. It is a loan. So it is a good thing that Davidson is loan free. But it doesn't mean that you can't get these federal direct student loans. And we could talk about that on a whole nother podcast, that most people, that's if you have debt, if you're going to need to take on debt, you should take that out. So I'll plant the seed. If your child ends up at a no loan school or any school and you don't see federal direct student loans on the financial aid award and you submitted the FAFSA, which at CAP we tell every family, submit that FAFSA, you can ask the financial aid office, say, hey, my child wants that federal direct student loan. Please offer it to us, and you have to accept it. So that's what no loans means. They won't do that. So they'll give you grants in lieu of it. The key thing to know is if you need that full grant, you can get it as an unsubsidized loan if you don't have any more federal need, and you can still have it. So it's a thing, and they're going to give you their grant money instead of that subsidized loan. So it's a good thing, but it is a bit, to Matt's point, to your point, Matt, like they say no loans and people think, oh, great, I don't have to take out any loans. So it kind of makes people think something that's not really the reality for most people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, and you've talked with plenty of families that are like, okay, we got in here, but I actually need a loan. What now? Right. And so this is where we're going to start. And again, for those of you that pay attention to our stuff, you've heard me say this many times. For those of you that are new to us, in cases like this too, I might still advise a family, say, hey, take out this loan anyways, even if you don't need it, because you're entitled to it, and pay it back, even if it's on your kid's behalf each year. And that way your student's going to graduate with excellent credit, established credit. So there's still a lot of reasons why it might make sense to take this loan again, even if you are not offered it. You're still entitled to it. So again, just want to make sure that folks understand that, because it's not intuitive.
Yeah, and at any school. Yeah, because I do see it every year with families, and I'm like, go ask them for this because you need it and it's not on here. So it might be unsubsidized completely, or it might be a combo. So, but that's what that means to what Matt shared. It's almost always the case. You don't hear state schools saying this, right? You hear the privates that are really hard to get into, and they say we're no loan schools, which is great, but just realize what it means.
Eyes wide open. back to the transparency thing. That's what we're trying to cut through the noise. These are all good things for the most part. We're talking about positives here. We're giving schools some love for these programs, but let's just devil's in the details, as you say, Peggy. So, okay, well, my parting words here are I guess my what I learned today, Peggy, is go ahead and go listen to the Counting Crows. Just don't go see them live. So
rock out to your Spotify. But I love you if you guys are listening and you have a college kid. But you have to sing your songs on the stage, not talk through them.
Message received, Peggy. Message received. Well, thank you. We will see you next week, and hopefully we'll see everyone next week.
Yep. All right. See you next time.
As always, thanks for listening to our podcast, Old College Tried. I'm Matt Carpenter. I was joined by the fairy godmother financial aid herself, Peggy Keough, today. This episode has been produced and edited by our very own I Am Sued. If you got anything out of it, please like us, please share us, please follow us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your old college classmates. Thank you.